Welcome to Crafted Nest, a place where creativity finds a home in the simplest of things. Today, we invite you to see how dry branches, once forgotten on the ground, can be reborn as treasures that transform your tiny garden and home into a sanctuary of beauty. In every twig lies a story of resilience, and in every branch rests the potential for wonder. From rustic trellises that lift climbing plants skyward, to artistic wall decor that whispers poetry into plain spaces, these ideas are proof that nature offers us endless gifts if only we learn to see them differently. Here, it is not about expensive tools or complicated designs. It is about observing, imitating, and gently modifying what is already around us. Each creation speaks not only of sustainability, but of a deeper connection with the earth. Before we begin this journey, take a moment to subscribe to Crafted Nest. By joining us, you become part of a growing community that celebrates resourcefulness, creativity, and the quiet joy of making beauty with our own hands. Let's explore together and turn the ordinary into something truly extraordinary. When you step into a small garden, space often feels like the biggest challenge. Yet sometimes, the answer is simply to look upward. A rustic branch trellis, crafted with your own hands, is one of the most magical transformations you can bring into a limited corner. It's not about perfection. In fact, the charm lies in the irregular lines of each branch, tied together gently with rope or wire, waiting for nature to do its part. Picture this. A handful of dry branches you once thought of discarding are now standing proudly, guiding delicate vines to stretch toward the sun. Pea shoots curl around the rough texture of the wood, and morning glory flowers burst into tiny stars along the frame. The verticality gives your garden depth, freeing the ground below for herbs or flowers, while the trellis itself becomes a living tapestry of green. What makes it special is not just the look, it's the story it carries. Every time a new leaf appears, you are reminded that life thrives when given support. Even the smallest balcony can be transformed into a lush sanctuary when vines dance on a trellis. If you want to try, keep it simple. Use strong branches that feel sturdy in your hands. Tie them into a shape that pleases your eye, and place them where sunlight lingers. With time, the plants will weave their way upward, turning your effort into a natural piece of art. This trellis is more than a structure. It's a quiet reminder that growth is always possible, no matter how small the space, as long as we create room for it. Sometimes the most enchanting beauty is found in the air, not the ground. Hanging planters made from dry wood frames carry this secret, turning empty spaces into cascades of life. Imagine stepping into your balcony or tiny yard and looking up to see rows of greenery swaying gently, each pot framed by the strength of an old branch that once lay forgotten. The process is simple, almost meditative. You pick a sturdy branch, strong enough to bear the weight of small pots. With ropes or twine, you suspend it so it feels balanced, almost like a floating piece of nature. Then you let imagination decide. Herbs in clay pots, succulents in tiny baskets, or trailing ivy that spills gracefully downward. With each choice, the space becomes more alive, more personal. What makes this idea so powerful is the way it reclaims vertical emptiness. Where once there was only a blank wall or a narrow balcony, now hangs a living chandelier. Sunlight filtering through leaves adds playfulness, casting soft shadows that change throughout the day. Indoors, it works just as beautifully. A branch above the kitchen counter filled with pots of basil and mint brings the taste of freshness into every meal. There is a quiet poetry in seeing rough wood supporting delicate green. It's a meeting of resilience and fragility, a balance that feels timeless. Each plant becomes more than decoration. It becomes part of a small ecosystem you have created with your hands. And when guests notice, their eyes always linger. They ask questions, admire the idea, and perhaps feel inspired to do the same. That's the real gift of hanging planters. Not only do they beautify your space, but they also carry forward a story of resourcefulness, creativity, and the joy of growing life above the ground. There is something quietly magical about a garden pathway. It doesn't just lead you somewhere. It tells a story along the way. And when that path is bordered by dry branches, the tale becomes even richer, echoing with the beauty of nature's simplicity. Imagine walking through a tiny garden where every step feels guided. On either side, dry branches lie gently against the earth, shaping the edges of gravel or mulch. They don't demand attention, but they give form and order, whispering to visitors, "This is where the journey begins." The rough texture of the wood contrasts with the softness of grass and flowers, creating a balance that feels both rustic and intentional. The beauty of branch borders is in their honesty. They aren't polished like stone or concrete. Instead, they carry the marks of time, cracks, curves, even moss slowly weaving its way across the bark. These imperfections are what make them beautiful. In a small space, borders like these create definition, turning a modest patch of soil into something that feels designed with care. And the practicality is undeniable. Branch borders hold soil in place, keeping garden beds tidy, guiding water flow, and making each area feel organized. Yet they do so while blending seamlessly with the environment, as if they've always belonged there. Creating them is effortless. Gather branches of different thicknesses, arrange them along your path, and let them rest naturally. Over time, the weather will soften their color, turning them into silvered wood that looks timeless, like it has been there for years. Walking down such a path, you don't just see a garden, you feel embraced by it. Every step becomes slower, more mindful, as though the branches themselves are encouraging you to pause, breathe, and truly notice the beauty that surrounds you. Sometimes a piece of furniture can be more than just a place to set down your coffee. It can be a conversation starter, a memory keeper, and a quiet piece of art. A coffee table made from dry branches holds all of that within its frame. Simple, rustic, yet endlessly meaningful. Picture a humble living room where light pours in through the windows. At the center rests a table, its legs crafted from uneven branches tied together, supporting a smooth wooden slab or perhaps a circle of glass. The contrast is striking. Raw bark meeting polished surface, nature lending its strength to something functional and beautiful. There is warmth in knowing this table was not bought but made, assembled by hand, shaped by imagination. Each branch chosen carefully, perhaps from a walk in the woods or from a pile once destined for fire. Instead, they now stand proudly, carrying the daily rhythm of life. Cups of tea, books stacked lazily, a vase of wildflowers. This kind of creation doesn't aim for perfection. The branches twist and curve, each unique, giving the table a character that no factory could replicate. In small homes, such pieces add not just utility but personality, reminding us that beauty can grow from what others overlook. When guests visit, their hands instinctively brush against the bark. They ask where you found it, and you smile, knowing it's not found, it's made. And in that moment, the table becomes more than wood. It becomes a symbol of resourcefulness, of creativity, and of living in harmony with what nature provides. Every time you set down your morning coffee, you'll remember, this table is more than furniture. It's a quiet story of how simple branches became part of your home's heart. Walls often speak in silence. They hold the heart of a home, yet sometimes feel empty, waiting for a touch of soul. With twigs and branches, that silence can be turned into poetry. A bare wall, once plain and forgettable, suddenly breathes with warmth when touched by nature's hand. Imagine gathering twigs of different shapes, each one crooked in its own way, each telling the story of where it once stood. When you arrange them into patterns, geometric lines, tree silhouettes, or even abstract bursts, you are weaving fragments of the forest into your living space. The wall becomes more than a surface. It becomes a canvas alive with texture and meaning. There's no need for perfection. A branch might bend slightly, a twig might split, and yet these details make the art more genuine. Sunlight filtering through the window casts shadows across the design, changing the look throughout the day. In the morning, it feels soft and gentle. By evening, the same twigs stand bold and striking. Fairy lights can add a touch of magic, glowing like fireflies caught in wood. Or you might leave the branches raw, letting their natural lines tell the story. Either way, the effect is deeply personal and endlessly adaptable. This kind of wall art does more than decorate. It reminds you that beauty can be found in what others call waste. It makes guests pause, their eyes tracing the branches, their minds imagining the forest it once belonged to. And in that pause, a quiet admiration blooms. Every glance at the wall whispers the same truth. Creativity doesn't need to be bought. It grows from the simplest of materials, twigs, patience, and a willingness to see art where others see nothing. Sometimes, the smallest shelters hold the greatest promise. A mini greenhouse made from branches may look simple, even fragile, yet within it lies the future of a garden. Each young leaf inside whispers of tomorrow, nurtured by warmth and protection crafted with your own hands. Picture a handful of dry branches arranged into a frame, irregular but strong, holding sheets of plastic or pieces of repurposed glass. Sunlight slips through, warming the air within, while outside, wind and rain pass by harmlessly. Inside, tiny seedlings stretch upward with quiet determination, safe in their handmade sanctuary. The beauty of a branch-framed greenhouse lies in its honesty. It doesn't hide its rough edges. The bark remains, the shapes are uneven, but that rawness is its charm. No two are ever the same. Each structure feels like a small hut of hope, a reminder that protection doesn't always come from steel or concrete, but from the simplest gifts of nature. For a gardener with little space, this idea is a revelation. On a balcony, the greenhouse becomes a tiny world of its own, letting you start herbs, flowers, or even vegetables early in the season. You can move it to chase the sunlight or bring it inside when storms threaten. Its mobility is as valuable as its rustic beauty. And there is something poetic in watching life unfold behind those panels. Drops of condensation gather like morning dew, leaves unfurl as if bowing to the light, and with every new sprout, you feel the reward of patience. This is more than a project. It is a lesson that growth thrives when we offer care, no matter how modest the shelter. A mini greenhouse built from branches is not just a structure. It is a promise, wrapped in wood and sunlight. Light has always been a companion of comfort. When paired with the raw simplicity of branches, it becomes something even more special, a glow that feels both natural and intimate. A candle holder or a lantern made from dry wood does more than illuminate a room. It tells a story of transformation, where what was once discarded becomes a vessel of warmth. Imagine taking a thick branch, cutting it to size, and gently hollowing out a space within. Place a candle inside, and suddenly the bark that once weathered storms now cradles fire. The flame flickers, dancing across the uneven surface, casting shadows that stretch like gentle brushstrokes on the walls. In daylight, it is rustic and raw. In the evening, it becomes quietly magical. Lanterns shaped from branches invite creativity. Small cutouts can let the light escape in patterns, like stars scattered on the ground. A row of branch holders along a dining table turns a meal into a gathering wrapped in calm. Placed outdoors, they glow softly among plants, giving the garden a sense of timeless serenity. The charm of these pieces lies in their imperfections. Every knot, crack, and curve in the wood adds character to the way the light escapes. No two holders are ever alike, just as no two evenings will ever cast the same shadows. Creating them requires only patience and imagination. With a few tools and a candle, you transform a forgotten branch into something that warms the eyes and the heart. And each time the flame flickers, you'll be reminded that even the simplest materials can shine brightest when given a second life. Even the smallest garden can feel enchanted once the sun goes down. All it takes is a simple bundle of branches and a strand of fairy lights to turn ordinary space into something unforgettable. Outdoor fairy light displays are proof that beauty often begins with what is already around us. Picture dry branches, once overlooked, gathered together and placed upright in a pot or tied into an arrangement. By day, they stand rustic and raw, adding texture to a corner of your garden. But when the evening arrives and the fairy lights awaken, Those same branches glow as though sprinkled with stardust. The play of light and shadow creates an atmosphere that feels both warm and magical, inviting you to linger outside a little longer. The charm of this idea lies in its simplicity. No need for grand installations or expensive fixtures, just branches, lights, and a little imagination. Wrapped gently around each twig, the fairy lights emphasize every curve and angle, making the natural form shine. A pathway edged with glowing branches guides your steps like lanterns of the earth, while a pot filled with lit branches becomes a beacon of comfort on the patio. It is a design that feels alive, changing with each moment. In twilight, the lights shimmer softly. By night, they shine brighter, transforming your garden into a sanctuary of calm. Guests often pause, drawn to the quiet glow, and conversations soften in its presence. Creating one is as easy as wrapping a gift. Wrap the lights, secure them gently, and step back to admire. It is in these simple gestures that outdoor spaces become extraordinary. And every evening, as the branches glow, you are reminded, sometimes the smallest touches create the greatest wonder. In small spaces, every inch matters. The floor quickly fills, and suddenly there seems to be no more room to grow. But branches, once forgotten on the ground, can rise again as vertical stands and shelves, lifting your plants toward the light and giving them a stage to shine. Imagine two thick branches forming a frame, joined by thinner ones that cross like gentle ladders. Each beam holds a pot, some with herbs, others with flowers, perhaps even trailing vines that spill gracefully downward. In a corner of a balcony or against a garden wall, this creation feels alive, transforming empty air into a canvas of greenery. There is a natural harmony in the design. The rough bark blends seamlessly with terracotta and soil, making the plants appear as though they are still part of the forest. Indoors, branch shelves add both function and poetry. A rustic plank supported by twigs becomes a home for succulents or books, each piece carrying its own story of resourcefulness. The beauty lies not only in saving space, but in creating presence. A vertical stand draws the eyes upward, making a tiny garden feel larger, more layered. It turns a modest collection of plants into a vibrant display, alive with different shades of green and blossoms of color. Building one is simple: strong branches for support, smaller ones for balance, tied or nailed securely. Perfection isn't required. The irregular lines add character, reminding you that nature doesn't follow straight rules. And every time you water your plants, you'll feel it. The joy of having created not just a shelf, but a little tower of life. Proof that with imagination, even the smallest branches can help your garden reach for the sky. A mirror reflects more than just a face. It reflects the soul of a space. And when framed with twigs, it becomes more than a mirror. It becomes a piece of nature's poetry hanging quietly on the wall. Picture a simple round mirror, plain and ordinary. Around its edges, dry twigs are arranged like rays of sunlight, each branch reaching outward, imperfect yet full of charm. The reflection within shows not only the room, but also a glimpse of the forest that once held those branches. Suddenly, the mirror is no longer just functional, it's alive with memory. The beauty of twig-framed mirrors lies in their irregularity. No two twigs are alike. Each curve, crack, and knot adds character to the frame. Some may jut out, others bend gently, and together they weave a pattern that feels rustic, raw, and deeply authentic. It is a contrast to the smooth glass, soft, rough wood embracing the clarity of reflection. In a hallway, such a mirror greets guests with quiet warmth. In a bathroom, it softens the coldness of tiles with its organic presence. And in a bedroom, it becomes a daily reminder that beauty is not only what you see in the reflection, but also in the frame that holds it. Creating one is surprisingly simple. With glue, patience, and a collection of twigs, you can transform an ordinary mirror into a statement piece. The process itself is calming, like piecing together a puzzle written by nature. Every glance in the mirror becomes an invitation, not just to see yourself, but to notice the art around you. And in that moment, Even the smallest twig holds the power to frame your world with beauty. The first step into a home often sets the tone for everything that follows. An entryway is not just a place to hang coats or drop keys. It is a quiet welcome. And when hooks are crafted from branches, that welcome feels more personal, more grounded in nature. Imagine walking inside after a long day. Instead of cold metal hooks, you're greeted by branches reaching from the wall, each one offering a place for your hat, your scarf, your bag. Their shapes are irregular, their bark still intact, carrying the memory of wind and rain. And yet, in their new role, they bring both function and charm. There is poetry in using branches as hooks. They remind us that usefulness does not always come polished or manufactured. A crooked twig becomes the perfect place for a set of keys. A strong branch stub holds a heavy coat with ease. Each piece feels unique, unlike anything store-bought, and together they turn a simple hallway into a rustic statement. Making them is delightfully simple. Choose branches that feel sturdy in your hand. Mount them directly to the wall, or attach them to a wooden plank for easier installation. The result is a row of hooks that feel more like a row of helping hands, each one extending itself with quiet generosity. Guests notice. They pause to hang their belongings, their fingers brushing the texture of bark, their eyes drawn to the natural shapes. And in that pause, they feel welcomed not only into your home, but into your story, one where nature is cherished, repurposed, and celebrated. Every time you hang your coat, you'll be reminded, beauty and utility can live together in the simplest of ways. Even in something as small as a branch offering you a place to rest your belongings. Memories deserve more than to be hidden in drawers or digital screens. They deserve to be seen, touched, and celebrated every day. A rustic photo display made with branches and strings is more than decoration. It is a gallery of life, framed by nature's touch. Picture a simple dry branch suspended by twine, hanging gently against a plain wall. From it, rows of strings fall downward, each carrying small photos clipped with wooden pegs. Some are Polaroids, others are printed snapshots, all filled with smiles, places, and moments frozen in time. The irregular bark of the branch contrasts beautifully with the smoothness of the photographs, reminding us that life itself is a mix of rough and tender. The charm of this design lies in its intimacy. Every time you walk past, you pause. Your eyes land on a different picture, and suddenly, you are back in that memory. The laughter of friends, the quiet of a trip, the warmth of family gathered together. The display doesn't just hold photos, it holds emotions, hanging like gentle whispers from the past. And it is wonderfully simple to create. A strong branch, some twine, a handful of clips, and your memories are reborn as art. Adding fairy lights can turn the display into a glowing constellation, each photo like a star in the story of your life. Guests who visit often linger, tracing the photos with their eyes, smiling at the idea. They see not only your memories, but your creativity, your way of honoring the past while living fully in the present. This rustic photo display becomes more than wall decor. It becomes a daily reminder that every branch, every string, can carry stories worth remembering, and that beauty grows when memory and nature meet. Windows are the eyes of a home. Through them, light enters, and with it comes warmth, mood, and life. When those windows are dressed with curtains held by a branch, the ordinary act of pulling fabric aside becomes a gentle reminder of nature's embrace. Picture a living room where sunlight floods in. Instead of a polished metal rod, a dry branch stretches across the window, its bark still intact, its shape slightly curved. Curtains hang gracefully from it, their softness balanced by the rugged wood. The effect is subtle but striking. Suddenly, the space feels more grounded, more personal, as though a piece of the forest has been invited indoors. Every detail tells a story. The knots in the wood, the uneven thickness, the gentle imperfections, they all remind you that beauty doesn't need symmetry. And when light filters through the curtains, brushing against the branch, the whole scene feels alive, as though touched by the quiet poetry of the outdoors. This design is wonderfully adaptable. In a bedroom, Sheer curtains hung from a branch add romance, softening the morning light. In a kitchen, floral fabric paired with rustic wood creates warmth, making meals feel homier. Even in small apartments, the branch transforms plain windows into scenes worth pausing at. Creating one is both practical and soulful. Choose a branch long enough, clean it gently, and secure it with brackets or ropes. The process is simple, yet the result is transformative. Each time you draw the curtains, you'll feel it. That connection between outside and inside, between wood and fabric, between the world beyond your window and the life unfolding within your walls. And in that moment, your home feels not just decorated, but truly alive. Jewelry is more than adornment. It carries memories, emotions, and little fragments of personal history. To display them on a stand made from branches is to give those memories a stage that feels both rustic and poetic. Imagine a simple branch, chosen for its natural arms that stretch outward like open hands. Placed upright on a base of wood or stone, it transforms into a jewelry stand where each twig cradles a necklace, a bracelet, or a pair of earrings. The contrast is beautiful, the shimmer of metal and gemstones hanging from the raw bark of wood, a dialogue between elegance and earth. Every morning, as you reach for a piece to wear, the stand feels like a tree offering its gifts. There is no sterile order here, no rigid compartments, just a living sculpture that evolves with the jewelry it holds. And every glance reminds you that beauty can be born from the simplest materials. The process of creating one is as calming as the result. A walk outside, a search for the right branch, the joy of finding one with natural curves. A bit of sanding, a steady base, and suddenly what was once fallen would becomes a keeper of treasures. Placed on a vanity, the stand turns ordinary routines into small rituals. In a bedroom, it softens the space with a touch of nature. Even in the smallest corner, it speaks of resourcefulness and creativity, of blending the wild with the refined. Guests who notice it are drawn closer, curious about its story. And in their admiration, you realize, this is not just storage. This is art, memory, and nature intertwined. An everyday reminder that elegance does not need to be purchased. It can be created. A coat rack is often the first thing you see when stepping into a home. It holds not only jackets and scarves, but also the quiet weight of daily routines. When that rack is made from branches, the welcome feels warmer, more rooted, and filled with character. Imagine a tall branch, once fallen in a forest, now standing proudly in a hallway. Its smaller arms, once reaching for the sky, now reach outward to hold coats and hats. The texture of bark contrasts beautifully with fabric, making every item hung feel like part of a living sculpture. Guests notice immediately, pausing to admire the simplicity, the authenticity, the sense of story. There's honesty in a branch coat rack. It doesn't pretend to be perfect. It leans, curves, and carries scars from its life outdoors. Yet those very imperfections give it strength and charm. No two are ever the same, and that uniqueness makes each rack a piece of art as well as storage. Creating one requires only imagination and a little effort. A sturdy branch can be secured upright on a wooden base or mounted horizontally to the wall with brackets. Stronger limbs become natural hooks, while smaller twigs can be trimmed or left as accents. The result is practical yet deeply personal, storage that feels alive. And every time you hang a coat, you'll feel it. The branch doesn't just hold your belongings, it holds a story of reuse, of creativity, of the quiet beauty found in what nature offers. A reminder that even in the simplest corners of our homes, we can invite the outdoors in, blending function and poetry with every gesture. Light transforms a space, but when light is carried by a branch, it does more than brighten a wall. It tells a story. A rustic wall-mounted branch lamp blends raw nature with gentle illumination, creating warmth that feels both humble and timeless. Picture a crooked branch chosen not for symmetry, but for its character. Mounted against the wall, it extends like an arm offering light. From its end, a bulb dangles, simple, unadorned, glowing with quiet warmth. The roughness of bark paired with the softness of light creates a harmony that feels deeply human, a reminder that beauty can be both raw and refined. In a living room, such a lamp becomes a conversation starter. Guests notice the contrast, the natural imperfection of wood holding something as modern as a bulb. In a hallway, it softens shadows, making even the simplest passage feel alive. And in a bedroom, the glow from a branch lamp turns nighttime into a ritual of calm, wrapping the room in serenity. The process of making one is as rewarding as the result. A sturdy branch, a secure base, a cord, and a bulb. It doesn't require much, only imagination. Each knot in the wood, each curve of its form, makes the lamp unique, a one-of-a-kind piece no store could replicate. Every evening when you switch it on, you don't just light up a room. You illuminate a memory, a piece of nature, a fragment of the forest that now lives within your walls. And each glow reminds you that light, when paired with simplicity, has the power to turn ordinary moments into something extraordinary. Keys may be small, but they hold the weight of our daily lives, opening doors, keeping us safe, guiding us home. And when they're kept on a holder made from branches, even this simple ritual becomes filled with charm and intention. Picture a dry branch, once overlooked on the ground, now given a second life on the wall of your entryway. Its bark is rough, its shape uneven, yet it holds tiny hooks or nails where keys dangle neatly. Each set swings lightly when touched, catching the light as though celebrating its place. The branch itself becomes more than storage. It becomes a piece of nature greeting you each time you walk in. The beauty of this idea lies in its simplicity. No heavy carpentry, no expensive materials, just a branch, a few hooks, and a little creativity. The result is both practical and poetic. It keeps your space organized while offering a rustic focal point that feels personal and handmade. Guests notice the moment they enter. They smile at the uniqueness, perhaps touch the bark, surprised at how such a small idea can make a hallway feel warm. And when they ask, you can share the story, that this was once just a piece of wood, now transformed into something useful and beautiful. Every time you hang your keys, it feels like a small ritual of grounding, of placing a piece of daily life back into the care of nature. And each morning when you grab them again, you're reminded that creativity doesn't need grandeur. It thrives in the simplest corners, even in a branch waiting by the door to keep your life in order. The kitchen is the heart of the home, a place where warmth and nourishment flow daily. Adding a branch frame for hanging herbs brings both function and beauty into this space, turning cooking into a ritual touched by nature. Picture a sturdy branch mounted across a wall or suspended above a counter. From it, bundles of herbs dangle gently: rosemary, basil, thyme, mint. Their fragrance lingers in the air, their leaves drying slowly under the kindness of sunlight. Every time you step into the kitchen, the sight and scent remind you that meals are more than recipes. They are experiences grown from Earth's gifts. The charm of this design lies in its dual purpose. It is practical, providing a space-saving way to dry herbs or keep fresh ones close at hand. And it is poetic, transforming a simple branch into a frame that holds not only greenery, but the memory of gardens and seasons past. The rough wood contrasts beautifully with the soft leaves, making even an ordinary corner feel like a page from a rustic cookbook. Creating one is effortless. Choose a branch with character, secure it firmly, and tie herbs with twine. Over time, the herbs dry gracefully, ready to be crumbled into soups, teas, or marinades. Each bunch tells a story of growth, of patience, of care. Guests who visit often pause in admiration. They see not just herbs, but a piece of living art, functional, fragrant, and deeply personal. And in their wonder, you feel it too, that beauty does not need to be bought. It can be created from what nature gives freely. Every meal you prepare beneath those hanging herbs becomes richer, not only in taste but in meaning. A garden becomes truly alive when birds arrive, bringing their songs, their colors, and their gentle presence. A bird perch and feeder stand made from branches is more than decoration. It is an invitation, a way of saying to nature, you belong here too. Imagine a tall branch planted firmly in the soil, its smaller arms stretching outward like open hands. From them hang small cups or bowls of seeds, or perhaps a coconut shell filled with food. Birds gather curiously, hopping from twig to twig, their feathers brushing against bark that once swayed in the wind. The sight is simple, yet it transforms an ordinary yard into a sanctuary. The beauty of a branch feeder is in its natural harmony. Unlike metal or plastic stands, it doesn't feel imposed, it feels like it grew there. Birds trust it easily, perching without hesitation, blending seamlessly into the wooden form. And as they come, they bring life. Chirps at dawn, flashes of color at midday, a quiet dance at dusk. Building one requires only a strong branch and imagination. Fix it firmly into a base, add small holders for seeds, and let nature do the rest. Over time, moss may creep along the bark, making it even more inviting. The feeder stand becomes a meeting point not only for birds, but for you to pause, watch, and feel part of something larger. Every visit from a bird is a small gift, a reminder that life is not meant to be rushed, that joy can perch quietly on a branch outside your window. With a feeder made from wood, you don't just care for the garden. You nurture the rhythm of the earth itself. The bedroom is where the day begins and where it gently ends. It is a place of rest, of quiet thoughts, of dreams. Adding a headboard made from branches turns this intimate space into something even more personal, a blend of nature's strength and the softness of home. Picture a wall behind the bed, once bare and simple, now alive with branches. Some stand tall, others curve and cross, their bark rough and true. They do not aim for perfection, yet together they form a frame of character and warmth. When morning light spills across them, they cast soft shadows, creating art that changes with every hour of the day. The charm of a branch headboard lies in its honesty. Each piece of wood carries a story of seasons endured, winds faced, sunlight embraced. And now, in your bedroom, those stories rest with you, cradling your sleep. It feels rustic yet calming, imperfect yet deeply grounding. Creating one is both creative and soothing. Gather branches of varied thickness, clean them gently, and arrange them in a design that pleases your eye, whether tied together, mounted directly, or intertwined into a pattern. Adding small fairy lights can make the headboard glow at night, like stars woven into wood. When you lie down, the branches seem to whisper of forests and open skies. They remind you that rest is not only about comfort, but about connection to the earth, to simplicity, to the rhythm of life itself. This rustic headboard is more than furniture. It is a story you lean against each night, a piece of the outdoors that holds your dreams gently, reminding you that even in rest, nature is close.